Have you felt that frustrating moment when you know exactly what you should stop doing? You have tried countless times to change. You have promised yourself that this time will be different, but somehow you always find yourself trapped in the same destructive cycle that is slowly destroying your life. You are not alone in this struggle, and what I'm about to share with you today comes from the profound wisdom of Minamoto Yoshitsune, a Japanese philosopher whose revolutionary approach to breaking destructive habits has transformed millions of lives across centuries. This is not another superficial self-help technique or temporary motivation boost. This is a ruthless method that cuts directly to the root of your destructive patterns and eliminates them permanently from your existence. If you have been searching for real answers, if you are tired of failing again and again, if you are ready to finally take control of your life, then what you are about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about breaking free from the chains that bind you to behaviors that no longer serve your highest potential. Let me tell you about Kenji, a 35-year-old businessman from Tokyo who came to understand Yatoshin's teachings during the darkest period of his life. For 8 years, Kenji had been trapped in a cycle of compulsive gambling that had cost him his marriage, his relationship with his children, his savings, and nearly his career. He had tried therapy, support groups, medication, meditation retreats, and every technique he could find, but nothing seemed to work for more than a few weeks before he would find himself back at the pachinko parlors, losing money he could not afford to lose while his life crumbled around him. The shame was eating him alive, and he had reached the point where he was considering ending his life because he could not see any way out of this prison he had created for himself. It was during this moment of absolute desperation that a colleague introduced him to the teachings of Minamoto Yoshitsune, and what Kenji discovered would not only save his life, but transform him into a completely different person. The night before Kenji first learned about Yatoshin's method, he had lost his entire monthly salary in a single gambling session. His wife had left him a voicemail saying she was filing for divorce, and his 7-year-old daughter had asked his mother why daddy never came home anymore. He sat in his empty apartment, surrounded by bills he could not pay, looking at pills he had been saving for weeks, planning to end the pain forever, because he believed he was beyond help and beyond redemption. Before we dive deeper into this life-changing wisdom, I want you to do something right now that will help not only you, but thousands of others who are watching this video and struggling with their own destructive patterns. Take a moment to like this video if you have ever felt trapped by a habit you could not break. Subscribe to this channel if you are ready to discover ancient wisdom that actually works in the modern world. And most importantly, share in the comments below which destructive habit has been your biggest challenge. And write exactly these words, so I know you are serious about change. Write, "I am ready to break free and reclaim my power." Your comment will not only help the algorithm show this video to more people who desperately need this information, but it will also create accountability for your own transformation and inspire others who are fighting similar battles to know they are not alone in their struggle. I receive hundreds of messages from people telling me how sharing their commitment in the comments was the turning point that finally gave them the courage to change their lives, and I want that same transformation to happen for you today. Yatoshin understood something that modern psychology is only beginning to recognize: that destructive habits are not simply matters of willpower or discipline. They are complex psychological structures that serve specific functions in our lives. And until we understand what those functions are and find healthier ways to meet those needs, we will continue to be pulled back into the same destructive patterns no matter how much we want to change. The first pillar of his ruthless method is what he called the principle of honest recognition, which requires you to stop lying to yourself about why you engage in these destructive behaviors and start looking at them with complete honesty and compassion. Most people fail to break destructive habits because they focus only on the behavior itself, rather than understanding the deeper psychological needs that the habit is attempting to meet. Yatoshin discovered this principle during his own struggle with sake addiction in his early 30s, when he realized that his drinking was not about pleasure or relaxation, but about numbing the pain of feeling like he had disappointed his ancestors and failed to live up to the philosophical traditions he was supposed to carry forward. When Kenji began applying this principle, he realized that his gambling was not really about money or excitement. It was his way of escaping from feelings of inadequacy and failure that had plagued him since childhood. His father had been extremely critical and demanding, never satisfied with Kenji's achievements, always pushing him to do better, to be more successful, to prove his worth through external accomplishments. The gambling gave him momentary relief from the constant pressure he felt to perform and achieve. It was the only time his mind could completely shut off the critical voice that told him he was never good enough. Once he understood this connection, he could begin to address the real issue rather than just fighting the symptom. He spent hours journaling about his childhood experiences, his relationship with his father, and the beliefs about himself that had formed during those early years. And this process of honest recognition was painful, but absolutely necessary for his transformation. The second pillar of Yatoshin's method is the principle of environmental design, which recognizes that our environment has a massive influence on our behavior, and if we want to change our behavior permanently, we must change our environment to support our desired changes, rather than undermine them. This goes far beyond simply removing triggers, though that is certainly part of it. This involves creating an entirely new ecosystem around yourself that makes the destructive behavior difficult and the positive behavior easy. Yoshitsune taught that trying to resist temptation through willpower alone is like trying to swim upstream against a powerful current. Eventually, you will become exhausted and be swept away. But if you change the direction of the current, you can swim with ease toward your destination. Kenji had to completely restructure his life. He changed his route to work so he would not pass by any pachinko parlors. He gave his wife control of all his finances and credit cards. He deleted all gambling apps from his phone. He ended relationships with friends who gambled. And he filled his free time with activities that gave him the same sense of escape and relaxation that gambling had provided, but in healthy ways. But environmental design is not just about removing negative influences, it is about adding positive influences that support your new identity. Kenji began surrounding himself with people who were living the kind of life he wanted to live. He joined a hiking group where he could experience the thrill and challenge he had been seeking through gambling. He started volunteering at a financial literacy organization where he could help others manage their money better, which gave him a sense of purpose and contribution that filled the emotional void that gambling had been attempting to fill. He redesigned his living space to reflect the person he was becoming, rather than the person he had been, removing anything that reminded him of his gambling days and adding books, plants, and artwork that inspired him to grow and improve. He even changed his morning routine, replacing the anxiety-inducing habit of checking gambling websites and sports scores with meditation, exercise, and reading philosophy, which set a completely different tone for his entire day. The third pillar, and perhaps the most powerful, is what Yoshitsune called the principle of identity transformation. This principle recognizes that lasting change happens not when we try to force ourselves to stop doing something, but when we become the type of person who naturally does not engage in that behavior. The question is not how do I stop gambling? The question is, how do I become the type of person who does not gamble? And these are two completely different approaches that lead to completely different results. When you focus on stopping a behavior, you are still identifying as someone who struggles with that behavior. You are still defining yourself in relationship to the thing you are trying to avoid, and this keeps you psychologically connected to it. When you focus on becoming a different type of person, you begin to naturally make choices that align with your new identity, and the old behavior becomes inconsistent with who you are. Yoshitsune discovered this principle through his study of samurai training, where warriors did not simply learn to avoid cowardice. They cultivated courage as a core part of their identity, until brave actions became as natural as breathing. Kenji had to completely reimagine his identity. Instead of seeing himself as a gambler who was trying to quit, he began seeing himself as a financially responsible father and husband who made wise decisions with money. Instead of seeing himself as someone with an addiction, he began seeing himself as someone who had overcome a challenge and was now helping others do the same. He started each day by asking himself not what would a recovering gambler do, but what would a financially wise and emotionally healthy man do in this situation. This shift in identity changed everything about how he approached decisions, challenges, and opportunities in his life. He began reading books about personal finance and investing, not because he was trying to resist gambling, but because that is what financially responsible people do. He began exercising regularly and eating healthy food, not as a distraction from gambling urges, but because that is how people who respect themselves and want to be good role models for their children live their lives. I want to pause here for a moment and speak directly to you, because I know that some of you are watching this and thinking that this sounds too good to be true, or that your situation is different, or that you have tried everything and nothing works. I want you to know that I understand that feeling, and I want you to know that the resistance you are feeling right now is exactly what Yoshitsune predicted would happen when people first encounter these ideas. Your mind is programmed to keep you safe, and it perceives change as dangerous, even when that change would clearly make your life better. The fact that you are feeling resistance is actually a good sign. It means these ideas are powerful enough to threaten the patterns that have been controlling your life, and that resistance is the first sign that real transformation is possible. Yoshitsune called this resistance the guardian at the gate, and he taught that learning to recognize and work with this resistance, rather than fighting against it, was essential for lasting change. The fourth pillar of Yatoshine's Ruthless method is the principle of systematic replacement, which involves identifying exactly what needs the destructive habit was meeting and finding healthier ways to meet those same needs. This is crucial because if you simply try to eliminate a behavior without replacing its function, you will create a psychological vacuum that will either pull you back to the old behavior or drive you toward a different but equally destructive behavior. Kenji realized that gambling had been meeting several needs: the need for excitement and stimulation, the need for escape from stress and pressure, the need for hope that his financial situation could improve quickly, the need for a sense of control in a life that often felt chaotic and unpredictable, and the need for social connection with people who understood his struggles. Each of these needs was legitimate and important, but gambling was a toxic way of meeting them that created more problems than it solved. Instead of gambling, Kenji began rock climbing, which gave him the excitement and adrenaline rush he had been seeking, but also built his confidence and physical health. Instead of using gambling to escape from stress, he learned meditation and breathing techniques that actually addressed the stress at its source, rather than just temporarily masking it. Instead of hoping for a quick financial fix through gambling, he began educating himself about investing and building wealth slowly and systematically. Instead of seeking control through the randomness of gambling, he began taking control of the areas of his life where he actually had influence: his health, his relationships, his skills, and his daily routines. Instead of seeking social connection in gambling environments, he joined support groups and volunteer organizations, where he could connect with people who shared his values and goals, rather than his destructive patterns. The fifth and final pillar is the principle of progressive mastery, which recognizes that breaking a destructive habit is not a single event, but an ongoing process of becoming more skilled at making choices that align with your values and goals. Yoshitsune taught that every moment you choose the healthier alternative over the destructive behavior, you are not just avoiding a negative outcome, you are actually building your capacity for self-mastery and strengthening the neural pathways that support your new identity. This means that the process of change itself becomes a source of confidence and empowerment, rather than a struggle against your own nature. Progressive mastery involves tracking your growth, celebrating small wins, learning from setbacks, and constantly refining your approach based on what you discover about yourself and what works best for your unique situation. Kenji began tracking not just his gambling-free days, but all the positive choices he was making each day that supported his new identity. He celebrated each time he chose to call a friend instead of isolating, each time he chose to exercise instead of numbing out, each time he chose to save money instead of spending impulsively, each time he chose to face a difficult emotion instead of running away from it. This tracking helped him see that he was not just avoiding gambling, he was actively building a completely new way of living that was far more satisfying and fulfilling than his old patterns had ever been. He kept a daily journal where he wrote about his wins, his challenges, his insights, and his plans for continued growth, and this practice helped him maintain perspective during difficult moments and stay connected to his deeper purpose for change. As you begin to apply these principles in your own life, remember that the goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Yoshitsune taught that setbacks are not failures. They are information. They tell you something about your environment, your identity, your replacement strategies, or your mastery level that needs to be adjusted. Kenji had several slips during his first year of applying these principles, but instead of seeing them as proof that he could not change, he used them as opportunities to refine his understanding of his triggers, strengthen his environment, and deepen his commitment to his new identity. Each setback taught him something valuable about his patterns and helped him build a stronger foundation for lasting change. On a personal level, you can apply these principles by first getting completely honest about what needs your destructive habit is meeting, then designing an environment that makes the destructive behavior difficult and the positive behavior easy, then beginning to see yourself as the type of person who naturally makes healthy choices, then finding better ways to meet the needs that the destructive behavior was attempting to meet, and finally tracking your progress in a way that builds momentum and confidence over time. On a relational level, you can share these principles with people in your life who might be struggling with their own destructive patterns. You can model what it looks like to take responsibility for your choices without shame or self-judgment. And you can create relationships that support growth and positive change rather than enabling destructive patterns. On a professional level, you can apply the same systematic approach to breaking any unproductive habits that are limiting your career growth. Whether that is procrastination, disorganization, poor communication, or any other pattern that is keeping you from reaching your full potential in your work. The transformation that Kenji experienced did not happen overnight, but it did happen systematically and permanently. Within 6 months of applying Yatoshine's principles, he had not only stopped gambling completely, but had rebuilt his relationship with his wife, reconnected with his children, created a comprehensive financial plan for his family's future, and discovered a sense of purpose and fulfillment that he had never experienced before. More importantly, he had developed the skills and confidence to handle any future challenges without reverting to destructive coping mechanisms. His wife later told him that it was not just the absence of gambling that convinced her to give their marriage another chance. It was seeing him become the man she had always known he could be, someone who was present, responsible, honest, and committed to growth. 3 years later, Kenji has become a financial advisor who specializes in helping people recover from financial destruction caused by addictive behaviors. He has helped hundreds of people apply these same principles to break free from gambling, shopping, substance abuse, and other destructive patterns that were destroying their lives and relationships. He often tells his clients that the day he discovered Yatoshine's teachings was the day he stopped being a victim of his circumstances and became the author of his own life story. His own children now see him as a hero rather than a source of disappointment, and he has created the kind of legacy he wants to leave behind. One of courage, transformation, and service to others who are struggling with similar challenges. What makes Yatoshine's approach so effective is that it addresses the whole person, not just the behavior. It recognizes that destructive habits are symptoms of deeper needs and patterns, and it provides a comprehensive system for creating lasting change at every level. This is not about willpower or motivation. This is about understanding how human psychology actually works, and designing your life in a way that makes positive choices natural and automatic. The beauty of this approach is that it does not require you to be superhuman or to have extraordinary willpower. It simply requires you to be systematic, honest, and persistent in applying principles that have been proven to work across cultures and centuries. If you are ready to apply this ruthless method to break free from whatever destructive habit has been controlling your life, I want you to take action right now while you are feeling motivated and inspired. Subscribe to this channel if you want to continue learning practical wisdom that actually works in real life. Hit the notification bell so you never miss new content that could change your life. And share in the comments below how you plan to apply these 5 principles to your specific situation. Write exactly these words so I know you are committed to real change. Right today. I begin my transformation into the person I was meant to be. Your commitment in the comments will not only help hold you accountable, but will inspire others who are watching to take action in their own lives. And that small act of courage could be the spark that changes everything for you and for them. Remember that every master was once a beginner, every expert was once an amateur, and every successful person was once someone who felt stuck and hopeless about their ability to change. The only difference between people who break free from destructive patterns and people who remain trapped is that successful people learn and apply proven methods like the ones Yatoshine developed, while unsuccessful people continue trying the same approaches that have already failed them multiple times. You now have access to wisdom that has been tested and proven over centuries. You have the tools and the knowledge. And the only question remaining is whether you will use them to create the life you truly desire.